Obviously, talking about me, I'm a little too fast for these streets. Middle of the road. Going for a morning run. Whew. Good way to start the day. All right, so pretty packed day today. I have some calls to make, and then I'm going to make some social media stuff for my team and myself. That way we can get more traffic through our social media platforms. And then I have 2 podcasts to film today. I'm really excited about them. 2 of my pretty good friends are coming on back to back, so it should be a pretty fun day. Oh God. I have to remind myself not to hunch over when I sit and make these calls. I used to be so good at it. When I was a personal trainer, I used to get on everybody else for having a hunched back when they sit down, and now here I am making these calls hours at a time, hunched back over like this. It's horrible. Just got done making my dog her morning eggs. Do you see this monstrosity of a mess that has all come from that? Incredible. All right, so I started thinking about why I made this podcast. That in the last video I said I wasn't going to be so promotional about it, but this video is pretty much all about the podcast. I remember this line in this book right here, Everyday Matters. It's by Matt Emerzian. I probably butchered that last name. I met Matt in Burbank, California, when my girlfriend Allie was working at Starbucks. He was a regular customer that would come by. My girlfriend and him would have great interactions, and he was just a really nice guy, and I'm sure he still is today. I actually hope to have him on the podcast one of these days, if that ever happens. Gotta admit, I haven't read the whole thing yet. Sorry, Matt, but that's not the point. Pretty much an interactive book on how you can take action and not only feel important and that you matter every single day, because you do, and it gives you reminders of why you matter and why others matter.
About 10 years ago, I woke up to go to work on a Monday morning, and I thought I was having a heart attack. I was the ripe age of 32 years old. My heart was pounding, I couldn't get a breath, I was sweating like crazy, and when I got to the doctor, they did some tests on me, and they realized that I wasn't having a heart attack, but that I was having a severe panic attack. And I never had a panic attack before in my life. I never experienced anxiety before in my life. I kind of just lived my life here, steady. But I was scared. He said, listen, why don't you go home and rest and just try to get some sleep, and it will go away within 24 hours. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen for me because my panic attack got worse, and it turned into chronic anxiety disorder. So it got to the point where I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't drive a car. When it got dark at night, I literally thought the sky was closing in on me, and I was getting claustrophobic. And it got so bad that my parents had to drive down from Northern California to move in with me for a month just to kind of help me get my life back. Unfortunately, at this time, I was introduced to a therapist because I just didn't understand what happened between going to bed at Sunday night and waking up 8 hours later Monday morning, what went wrong in that time period. And I went to see this therapist, and she looked at me and she said, Matt, I want you to see this book, and she slid it across the table. And I want you to open it and read the first sentence. And the first sentence of the book reads, it's not about you. You see, I didn't understand that concept very much because I worked in the music business. I started after graduating from UCLA with my MBA. I started working in music management, artist management, and then I got hired by the Kardashian family. And as working for the Kardashian family and Robert Kardashian, who had a major music marketing company, I'm now working on projects for some of the largest artists in the world, from U2 to Coldplay to Avril Lavigne to Usher. And you kind of get into this lifestyle, this slippery slope of what the business is. And honestly, it just kind of started to gobble me up in it. So when I sat there with this therapist and she says, it's not about you, well, I lived in the most narcissistic, ego-driven world that there is. So I don't understand that concept because I actually probably thought it was about me. And I said, she goes, but listen, until you understand it's not about you, you're never gonna feel better.
So it wasn't about him being successful anymore. It wasn't about him reaching the top of his mountain that he wanted to climb, whatever that may have been for him. It was about him contributing and serving others. And that's what I want to do with the podcast. That service that I'm giving others a platform as my guests, but also allowing their messages, and they're probably going to be positive messages in some way, shape, or form if I'm having them on. I'm allowing their message to spread to other people so that they know that, one, there's a positive media source out there that's spreading positivity. I want to give positive messages and spread them out. I want to share positive stories and stories that uplift and help others. And it's not just a normal news cycle. And if anyone chooses to listen to my podcast, I'm extremely grateful and appreciative because I'm really interested in those conversations. And I know from one thing, since we're talking about books, this book right here, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I actually don't agree with a lot of the stuff in here anymore, just because I think it's a little superficial, and I've dove into this book just many times over, and it's very frail. One of the main things I agree with in this book, he said that if you want to be interesting to others, be interested in them. And that is not something that I put on or that I fake. If I'm having someone on the podcast, I'm going to sit down with them for an hour plus, I am genuinely interested in their life and in their experiences or career. I know that if I'm interested in someone in one topic, I know that the likelihood of at least one other person being interested in the same thing as me is pretty high. You know, we have like over 7 billion people in the world. That's a pretty good chance that at least one person will be interested in this podcast or in that episode. And honestly, that's enough for me. If one person gets value out of that conversation that I had with that guest at that time, and it shares a positive message, and that improves their day or maybe changes their way of thinking, I'm satisfied. That's all that I want this podcast to represent, if you will. All right, that was why I made the podcast. So I'm sitting here at a park, was just filming a time lapse for a video, and I realized that I never finished yesterday's video. And I had talked about the podcast and how excited I was that I finally took action and made it, and I was, even satisfied if one person watched or listened to it, then I'd be happy. And then that day, the podcast that I recorded with my guest, it just turned out horrible. It was so bad. The quality was horrible because the internet connection was just really crappy that whole time. And so I got bummed out, and I just lost the drive to film the video, the rest of it, and finish it. And I've had a habit of that in my past of starting something, not finishing it, and I'm really trying to break that. So I know it's just a cycle. Every time you break something, it just keeps going on and on. But when you try to finish what you started and build that habit and build that discipline, I think it's worth it. So